Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited about today's guest because we're going to be talking about something that I really don't know a lot about. I know. It's hard to believe, but this is going to be such a fun conversation because we're going to be talking with the wonderful Mikkel Thorup today. So welcome, Mikkel. How are you doing?
I'm very good, Deb. I'm looking forward to today's conversation. This should be a lot of fun. And, when you and I were chatting before and you were saying, there's so many places out there I don't know so much about. I was like, oh, this is going to be a fun conversation today. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I know. Well, now that we've piqued people's curiosity, let me tell people just a little bit about you. So Mikkel Thorup is the world's most sought after expat consultant. He focuses on helping high net worth private clients to legally mitigate tax liabilities, obtain a second residency and citizenship, and assemble a portfolio of foreign investments, including international real estate, timber plantations, agricultural land, and other hard money tangible assets. Mikkel is the founder and director of Expat Money, a private consulting firm started in 2017. He hosts the popular weekly podcast, The Expat Money Show, and he wrote the definitive #1 best-selling book, Expat Secrets: How to Pay Zero Taxes, Live Overseas, and Make Giant Piles of Money. So again, Mikkel, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. And I love the intro. I love the enthusiasm there, Deb. It's very nice.
All on one cup of coffee, right? So this really is going to be so much fun because as I mentioned, I don't know very much about this. And I think it is such an interesting concept. So, but first, tell us a little bit about how it is that you got to where you are today.
Sure. So for my story, I have to go quite far back in time, but I will try to make it as concise as possible and as well thought out as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened, Deb, was when I was a child, I was diagnosed with a learning disability. And one day, they came into the classroom and they pulled me out of class, sat me down a little room, and there was the principal and the vice principal and maybe a resource teacher there. And they said to me, Mikkel, something doesn't work quite right in your brain. And what we want to do is we want to send you to a special school for special boys. So that's what they did. Every day for 3 years, I got on a little white bus. I took a little white bus across town and I went to this quote unquote special school. Now, the only problem was it actually was not a special school. It was actually a regular school with just a special class. You can probably imagine what happened. I got in a ton of fights. I got picked
There's
on,
a little bit of bullying, probably.
Absolutely. And, just an overall not fun experience. But,
and you were struggling anyway, and that just made it so much worse.
Absolutely. But after 3 years, I got to go back to my neighborhood school, and I was so excited. And I thought, wow, all my friends are going to be missing me and everything's going to be so amazing. And I got back to my neighborhood school and, first day or first week, everybody starts gossiping and whispering.
Where had you been?
Mikkel, yeah. He went to some retard school. Thanks, guys. Very, politically correct, how children are very sensitive, But just left a really bad taste in my mouth for public education. And so I stopped going. And when I stopped going, then I started failing. And so then they'd send me to summer school and then I would fail that. And then, they'd push me through and then I'd fail some more. But long story short, at 12 years old, I stopped going to school. And at 15, I officially dropped out. And not long after that, I went overseas for a trip and I started traveling and I started meeting all these incredible people who were exploring the world. And they were doing things so completely different than I had ever seen before. And they didn't know my background, that I went to some special school or special class or whatever it was. And it was an opportunity for me to recreate myself without all of this kind of stuff, and show who I am based on my actions and my character, and not something that happened to me. It allowed me to choose these types of things. And when I met all these amazing people and who were traveling and learning and exploring the world, I was like, these are my people. Like, them's my peeps, like this was like, I was so thrilled with it. And I decided at a very young age that this is what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to explore and see the world. Well, fast forward, it's been 23 years now. I've been traveling around the world. I've lived in 9 different countries. I've visited 110 countries, and I've circumnavigated the globe over 400 times.
Whoa.
Now I help other people to do the same. So we do relocations. We deal with all the esoteric piece of it. So I'm not the guy to put your stuff in a shipping container or turn your, mobile phone, get you a SIM card or a mobile phone when you're overseas. I deal with like the tax and the legal and the immigration side of things. Now, obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant, but I have a massive amount of experience from doing this myself. By diligent studying and reading. And quick side note, my learning disability was dyslexia, but I've read well over 2,000 books now in my life. So worked very hard at figuring this out, but worked through that. And I've had many mentors and people in my life, really, high-end lawyers who have been very generous with their time over the years and taught me a lot of things. But basically, I'm a coach or a consultant, and I help people through this. Does that make sense?
I love it. I love it. And I mean, there's so many things in there. The biggest is that we have to do what our passion takes us to do. And sometimes that comes at a very young age. Obviously, it did with you, where you thought, hey, this is what I want to be doing. I'm assuming, because you have no accent, that you're from the US originally.
I'm actually from southwestern Ontario.
Oh, okay.
So close to Toronto.
Okay.
But I left at 17. I'm 40 now. So the accent, the Canadian accent, has probably worn off.
You don't say "a" anymore.
I don't think so. Sometimes I like to put in, colloquial type of things from different places, or sometimes it comes out. We actually lived in the Middle East for 8 years. Okay. So it's interesting when you live overseas, your lexicon or your vocabulary ends up pulling in words from all over the place.
Right.
So, my wife is from China. So, sometimes we're talking, we'll be speaking English. I do speak English with my wife, but we also throw a little bit of Arabic in there, a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of Chinese, a little, even in Chinese, there's different languages in China. So I used to live in Singapore, so a little bit of Hokkien and Teochew, and then she's obviously a Mandarin speaker. Right. So it kind of all mixes together. But I think that the Canadian accent, or the A and a boot and things like that, I think those have kind of softened over the decades.
Well, and it's funny because we do pick up things from there. I've lived in Atlanta for almost 12 years. Now Atlanta is pretty, you don't hear a lot of accents here. But I came from Colorado, which pretty much has, it's not a lot of accent there. But I get a y'all in every once in a while. And I've learned, oh, bless your heart.
Wow. That is my favorite. Actually, I was talking to a client the other day, and then they were telling me that there is actually a plural of y'all.
All y'all.
All y'all.
All y'all.
And I was like, that's amazing.
Yep. Well, and I've learned with bless your heart, that depends. Yeah. It depends on how Southern you say it as to what you mean. If it's just, Mikkel, bless your heart, thank you for coming on the program today.
Yeah, that's a bit more genuine.
Yes.
Like, oh, bless your heart. Isn't that like you're like a little bit stupid?
You bless your heart. That means, oh, no. Right. But I think what this really shows is that we pick up what we need to, in order to communicate where we are at that time. But it also is a very small world, where, and I'm, a big part of that is, media, television. When we were in Italy, we traveled around very small towns and had a great time doing that. And I spoke just enough Italian to get us in trouble. But we had a waitress one time who spoke really pretty good English, and so we complimented her on that. And she said, I learned from watching Dr. House, and I thought, ooh, that might not be the right program to be learning your English from. But yeah, it shows that it also should we want to learn these things. I mean, that's part of it, is immersing yourself in whatever it is. And so I think that's just it's so much fun to try and figure that out. Well, my biggest question, especially in this post-COVID world, right, is we had so many people who went, oh, I don't have to go into an office anymore. So I'm going to wander about. I'm going to go to where I want to do. I'm going to work from wherever I have internet, things like that. And those folks are, for the most part, called digital nomads. But what you're talking about is different. So talk to us about the difference between being a digital nomad and being an expat.
So this is a great question, because I think the lexicon is extremely important, so that we're clear. Now, many people have different interpretations. I've heard, positive and negative things about each one of these words. I mean, like we can say an immigrant, we can say an expat, we can say a digital nomad. The way that I like to think about it is, I guess let's start with a digital nomad. So a digital nomad is typically someone who's a little bit younger generation. They work from a laptop. Now, that laptop can be which is remote working. It can just be for the company that they've always worked for. It can be small business owner or Amazon FBA or drop shipping or some type of online e-commerce business. Normally, what a digital nomad is doing is, and this is really where the difference comes in, is the legal status of the country that they're visiting. So a digital nomad is usually on a tourist visa. Since COVID, they've started coming out with digital nomad visas. There's about 40, 50 countries. And these are actually really good programs. They allow you to stay in the country for, say, a year. But traditionally, digital nomads are, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days legal in the country. And if they want to stay any longer, they have to do what we call a visa run. So they go across the border. They come back, maybe they have a coffee or a beer or something like that. And then
we were gone.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
We're back.
And they came back and they get another stamp. But this is really kind of gaming the system. This is not what you're supposed to do. This is not what the governments want to do. And you might get away with it once, twice, 10 times. But at some point, they're going to say to you, this is not correct. And they're going to refuse you entry. And that causes a whole host of problems. And
especially if some of your folks are already in there and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just, okay, I can give you some examples after why maybe this is not such a great idea. An expat, on the other hand, we have the legal right to live and work and reside and buy real estate and everything in the country.
You've declared residency.
Correct. Well, we've applied for residency and we've been accepted for residency. So we've actually had to go through a government program. Maybe there was an investment made. Maybe there was some type of time commitment that we have to do. And there's a whole immigration process. It's the same as someone coming to the United States if you wanted to get a green card, right? The difference is, one person comes in and, they're just a tourist, or maybe one person comes in and it's not legal, or someone who comes in, makes an application for a green card and has the legal right to be in that country. So that's usually what I think of when I think of an expat. Now, what is the difference between an expat and an immigrant? This is a pretty common question. Well, an immigrant is normally someone who will move to a new country and that's it. They're going to be there forever. They've built their entire life there.
So they let that original residency go.
Exactly. Yeah. They, wherever they might be from in the world, and it could be Canada going to the US, or it could be the US going to Australia or something like that, or it could be any combination. But that's it. They mentally are prepared. They're going to be there for the rest of their life. With an expat, it's traditionally a year, 5 years, 10 years. But at some point, they know they're either going to return to their home country or they're going to move on to another country. So we see this a lot with people who do, executive level jobs or C-suite level type of jobs. I lived in the Middle East, as I said. I was there for 8 years. So obviously a huge oil producing country. I was in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. So we would get, British and German and French and American and Canadian, oil executives who would come in and help out, or they were building the nuclear power plants there. And My friend worked for the Bruce power plants. He was on the board of directors there. And then he took a position as a board of directors. So these are highly paid individuals. Now, are they going to stay working at the power plant for the rest of their life? Probably not. You know, they're going to be there for a few years or 10 years or something, and then they'll move on, or they'll go somewhere else, or they'll get a position somewhere in another place. So this is more what I deal with, is the people who are going to continue on. Now, I do deal with the people who are highly paid professionals, but I'm also dealing with a lot of the business owners who decided that, you know what, I don't need to physically be located in my hometown or my country or my city or anything like that. I can run my business remote. So it's a lot of those people. Even like a lot of my clients are lawyers, doctors, dentists, chiropractors, things like this. They might have one or two offices. They're able to run a lot of those remote. You know, maybe they do telemedicine or they run their law firm remotely. So it's kind of these types of people that I usually help. But that I hope that kind of clears up a little bit about the lexicon between the three.
Right. You know, the digital nomad is more temporary, is, you know, probably the, you know, but they are there. I mean, I hate to say extended vacation, but that is kind of it. You know, they're there to, you know, have fun for 6 months or whatever. And while they're working, you know, or maybe they've retired and they're just there to, you know, to enjoy retirement.
Another important point. I also think of digital nomads because they're so transient. You know, it's a month here, 3 months there, 6 months there, 2 months here. You know, I find it difficult to really get to know the culture. Okay, you can see, but I think of it closer to a tourist. An expat, like what I encourage my clients to do is when they move to a country to learn the history,
get
culture,
vested in
food,
where you live,
the language. Like I speak Spanish as my second language. I live down here in Panama City. I have Panamanian friends. I understand Panamanian history. I'm 4 years into a 5-year program about applying for my Panamanian citizenship here. So I'll have a Panamanian passport. You know, like I try to really incorporate myself into the local culture. I don't try to make the local culture fit me. I try to fit the culture. And so I think that that's also a big difference, a more subtle difference, but I think an important one.
Right. Well, and when you look at when you're being a tourist, you know, or, you know, you learn some of the tourist things, you know, where do you go? Where do you eat? But you aren't invested in that community. And as you said, you know, when I read your bio, you talk about making actual investments in those countries. And so you truly are saying, hey, this is where I am for right now. I mean, you know, nothing is permanent, but this is where I am. I care about this community. And it, to me, at least, what that means is you're going to be treated differently also.
100%.
You know, and so, yeah, because it's, you know, oh, you're just a tourist. We don't care. But it's like, oh, you know, hey, you know, you've been here. You know, and we kind of mentioned a little bit with age. One of the things that I was wondering was, what about kids? I mean, do people do this when they have kids that are in school, or is it typically those who don't have kids or who have kids who have flown the nest?
So this is another good question. So we actually see the whole spectrum of age groups, both you know, young, old, male, female, from everywhere in the world. I'll give you a quick example. As I said, I'm Canadian citizen, Danish heritage. My wife is from mainland China. We met in Germany. We got married in Africa. Our first child was born in Abu Dhabi. Our second, our daughter was born in Abu Dhabi. Our son was born in Brazil. We live here in Panama. We homeschool our kids and we travel with them nonstop. So we just got back from a trip of 4 or 5 days ago. We took both the kids, my wife, my mother lives with us. She helps take care of the kids. We even took our nanny with us traveling, and we went to Turkey, Georgia, not your Georgia, but the country Georgia.
The one kind of there by Russia.
Yeah, exactly. Armenia and Azerbaijan for 5 weeks.
Wow.
And so the kids,
and because you homeschool, the kids just kept learning, but they were learning probably about where they were.
Correct. Well, not just where they are, but there was so many amazing opportunities for the children to learn. And I'll tell you a quick story. So we're doing the Turkish Citizenship by Investment program. This means that if I make an investment in the country of at least $400,000 in real estate, I qualify for citizenship. So I can actually get another passport. So these are the types of things that I help people with at expatmoney.com. So I'm actually going through the program myself. And my lawyer that's there, she's an amazing woman. She's traveled all over the world. She's done all these incredible things. And I actually took my daughter, who's 7 years old, to the meeting with my immigration lawyer.
Wonderful. Definite good day for take your daughter to work.
Absolutely. And then after the meeting, you know, we're walking down the street. We invited my lawyer for lunch. We took her out for lunch, and she's holding the lawyer's hand, and they're walking down the street. My daughter gets to ask her, like, what's it like to be a lawyer? What is a lawyer? What is a law? Why do we have laws? You know, why did you decide you wanted to do this? What do you like about the job? How do you help people? So she got to like ask all these inquisitive types of things from this Turkish immigration lawyer in Istanbul at 7 years old, instead of being, you know, at a desk and told just to don't move and listen to
the green turtle does.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very different level or style of education.
Right.
But that's the type of thing that we're trying to do. And I think that there are opportunities for the family, because you asked about kids. I think there's opportunity for the children to learn as you're traveling and living overseas, which is just so incredible to watch. And lots of people homeschool, lots of people send their kids to private schools, some send to public schools or online schools. There's just an unbelievable amount of opportunities out there for any family who wants to make this happen.
Right. You know, and obviously, especially after COVID, I mean, the whole homeschool thing, it really caught on.
Correct.
You know, and it's, you know, for a variety of reasons. You know, we saw here in the States with COVID that the kids who flourished during COVID were the ones who'd been falling behind, because then they really got a lot more, hopefully, you know, support from their parents or whoever was working with them. And then the ones that I talked to whose children were gifted, they were the ones that were just really hitting it out of the park, because they would do their little bit of whatever they were required to do, and get it done very quickly, and then be able to do so much more. A lot of them were taking college classes, you know, and some of these were young, you know, young teens that were taking college classes and things like that. And I think, you know, to me, the biggest detriment to homeschooling is the social aspects. So things like sports and, you know, band, choir, you know, all of those things. But there are certainly ways that you can still do that. And I would imagine, though, when you're an expat, you're going to connect with other expats in the area, but you're expanding that, you know, and so you might be able to go, you know, be in the local band with the local high school, and, you know, be able to experience with them what it's like.
Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities to still socialize. So definitely we have expat friends, and the majority of my friends are my clients, people that other like-minded families that we've relocated down here. Good people, you know, but we do have a lot of local friends as well. And we live in a local area. I don't live in a tourist area or expat area or anything like that. My daughter goes to a couple of different types of karate, and it's all locals there. And my daughter, as I said, is 7 years old. She speaks native level Spanish, native level English, and native level Mandarin Chinese. And we're working on Russian as her fourth language. So she can talk to anybody and make friends very easily. We take her to the park, to the pool every single day. There's tons of kids around. She does piano lessons. She does her piano in Russian. And there's just so many opportunities for her to meet people from local Panamanians as well as from other expats. And when we're traveling, we try to continue this for sure.
I love it. You know, so many opportunities. And then, of course, you know, you have those same opportunities as an adult, you know, and I'm sure that is one of the big draws to be doing this. You know, and so that brings me to, why should someone want this? And more importantly, who thinks, oh, this is cool, but really shouldn't be doing it? So who do you kind of say, yeah, maybe not so much to?
So that's an interesting one. I never tell anybody no. I mean, this is
It's their own journey.
100%. You know, like sometimes people would listen to me speak and they'll hear my experience and they'll think like, oh, I could never do that, or that's too intense,
sign me up right
much,
now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a combination. You know, I never want to make this sound scary or too much. I mean, my suggestion is always to start small and try it out and see how you like it.
Yeah,
and
be the digital nomad for a little bit.
100%. I mean, what I would suggest is you pick a place that you've always wanted to go, rent an Airbnb for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and go and try it out and see what you think about it, you know. And it's so different than just being a tourist and going for like a couple of days. You know, when you go for 3 months and you're plopped down in one place, you're going to find your favorite bakery, your favorite cafe, the best place to get dinner. And, you know, you'll start meeting some people at the pub and like, you know, or if you've got kids, you know, you'll find the best park. Like we always find the best parks for our kids. And then they go back day after day after day for, you know, a week straight or something like that. And then they start to make friends. So you give yourself time to experience those things and to see all the subtleties and the small differences. Like one of my favorite things to do when I'm traveling is just to people watch. I like to sit. I really love, I mean, I've already drank 2 espressos while we've been sitting here together. I like to sit at a cafe and just kind of watch people walk by. You know, maybe I'll have a book or an audiobook or something like that. And, you know, just drink a couple of coffees and watch people.
Kind of absorb.
Exactly, like osmosis. Just let it come on in, you know. If you're a tourist and you're like, okay, this is my itinerary. I got to go here in the morning, and then I'm going to go this place for lunch, and then these 2 places after. You don't give yourself enough time because you're trying to cram too much in. Like so many places I've been to, I've gone for months on end. Like I went to Morocco for 2 months when I was 19 years old. I spent 2 months in Colombia when I was 20. I've been back to South Korea 50 some odd times. I've been to Japan 30 times. I've been to Germany 20, 30 times. I've been, you know, places over and over again or extended periods of time. And that's allowed me to understand the culture a lot better.
Right.
But back to your original question, you know, who is this for? Who is this not for? Really, it's for anybody who wants a little bit of adventure in their life, who wants to, you know, experience the world and understands that you know, there's a lot out there to see. I believe that when you travel, what you're doing is you're pushing your own boundaries. Things are not always so comfortable. Things can get challenging or frustrating or very humbling, especially if you don't speak the language. Doesn't mean that it's dangerous. Doesn't mean that you're going to get hurt or anything like that. It just means that it's out of your comfort level. But every time you push yourself out of your comfort level or to the edge of your comfort level, you grow as a human being. And I mean, your program is amazing. You have so many entrepreneurs and business owners and people who like to create and build. Well, I think that this is an excellent opportunity for anybody who wants to grow. You know, you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation and you need to adapt. And when you have family, you know, you end up relying on your family even more, which strengthens your relationship with your spouse, with your children, with, you know, anybody who you're traveling with. So it's just an amazing experience. I really think that it's just so wonderful. And I feel very gifted and very passionate. You know, I hope that really comes through. If nothing else in today's conversation is how passionate I am about this, even after 23 years. I'm still so thrilled about the entire idea of traveling and exploring the world and living overseas and all of it.
Right. You know, and I love that you say that you need to immerse yourself for a while, far longer than if you were a tourist, because, you know, I went to Italy. We were there 10 days. I thought I could live here. Went to Scotland and Ireland. Now I was like, whoa, all these people look like me. We like this. But, you know, so it seemed really cool to think I could live here. But, you know, we need to be in those places longer to determine, okay, what's the healthcare? What's, you know, if you're thinking about having your kids in school and whatever level, you know, any, you know, even if they're old enough that they're going to maybe go to college, you know, is that going to work? Is, you know, okay, many people have a spouse that, you know, are they going to be able, or a partner, you know, are they going to be able to find a job, or can they, operate remotely, things like that. You know, obviously one of the big things you need to figure out is safety, you know, and just like you do here in the United States, is this a good neighborhood? No, we don't want to buy a house there. But sometimes you don't know that until you spent longer there. And so I love that you say, you got to go and spend some time there and determine, okay, is this really a workable situation that we could be here for a long time? I mean, weather would obviously be one of the things that I was thinking about that, might really be something that people think, wow, this is really cool, or, oh, no, I don't like what it's like here in the summer, the winter, the whatever. So you might need to overlap seasons a little bit.
Well, definitely. And I guess this comes down to, what is my business? How do I fit into these types of things? So really, this is the type of work that I do. When I work with my private clients, I work one-on-one with people, or one-on-one with families, let's say. I'm able to give a lot of insights on the different types of countries, the cultures, the people. I try to match up what we call them, the likes, wants, and needs of the people to the country. So because I've been to so many places and I've been back so many times over the last 20 years, I've seen the progression and the growth of the country. I understand, the patterns and what we're seeing, and I can give a lot of insights on these types of things so that when you go to try an extended period of time, a month or something like that, we've already done a lot of the heavy lifting already, right? So we are talking about the children's schooling, what that's going to look at. We're talking about not just the cities, but often the neighborhoods in different places. Now there's we call them expat hotspots, places where expat congregate around the world, and there's legitimate reasons why they would pick this city over another one. Tax reasons, immigration, investment opportunities, safety, healthcare, weather, all of these things that you mentioned. Those are all really important things that help determine if people are migrating there or not. So, I've seen a lot of these types of things. And then I can give, sometimes we build out kind of a matrix or a spreadsheet or a graph of the different countries, and we weigh one against the other. And we figure out, okay, well, what are the boxes for Deb? Like, what are the things that are the non-negotiables? What are the ones that she has to have? Yada, yada, yada. And we go through piece by piece and we tick box them, what ticks the boxes for you and your husband and your family. And, and it might be completely different than me or than another client, but it's that custom made type of plan. That's what I work on. So people usually go to expatmoney.com. They'll listen to my podcast, the Expat Money Show, or watch some of our videos or read our blog. We put out, blog articles 3 times a week. I get probably about 3 million people a year who listen and read my work and my insights on different countries and all the immigration and stuff. And when they decide, yes, Mikkel really knows what he's talking about, he's the real deal, is very, honest, ethical person, our values are aligned. I want some extra help. On the website, top right-hand side, there's a big orange button that says work with us. There's a letter on there. I have people read the letter. Please do not pull it up on your phone. You need to sit down.
You need it on the big screen.
Yeah, or a desktop, laptop. Get a coffee or a cup of tea or something like that, and sit down and read it, and it'll really explain the work, how everything works together, fits together. Excuse me. And then you fill out an application, and we would take a call together to see if it's a good fit. These are high-end consulting packages. I do 12 months worth of consulting with a family. There's a lot of work. We do basically weekly calls for the first couple of months, and then I build out the team of the lawyers and accountants and service providers that we need. I'm there on every call with the lawyer. I'm not a lawyer myself, so I outsource the legal work, but all the planning is done by me. They just do the paperwork, and I help them through everything. So it's a real done with you solution if you decide you want to live in another country. There are many reasons why someone might want to do it. We talked about kind of the adventure and the family ties, but there's a lot of economic reasons that people might want to do these things as well. For example, it can be very tax favorable to live in another country. I'm here in Panama. It's a territorial tax system. If the money is made outside of Panama, there's no tax inside Panama. Now, if you're an American citizen, that doesn't mean that you don't have to pay or file taxes back to the US. But there's a couple of programs that we work with the IRS to legally reduce your taxes drastically. So we can get you, the first $250,000, roughly $250,000 for a married couple of taxable income to zero. So you live down here in Central America, Costa Rica, or Mexico, or, well, not Mexico, but Costa Rica or Panama or one of these countries. and you're earning $250,000 tax free,
Mm-hmm.
you're Queen Deb.
Right.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna have a very
Mm-hmm.
nice life.
Right.
So
Well,
those are some of the reasons.
right. And I want to emphasize to folks, this is a complicated process, not a do it yourself. Now, I'm sure, there are those who really can explore it enough to do it yourself. But the tax thing really probably is one of the most complicated things. So it's not that, hey, I now live in another country. As long as you still have that citizenship, then there's something that you have to do now. You're having to file taxes legally the way you're supposed to. This is not, I'm not going to file. No, folks, there's still all the forms and things that you have to fill out, because Uncle Sam here in the States wants his take. And, obviously, there's income taxes in many other countries. So you need to make sure that you're doing this correctly, especially if you ever plan to go back. But it's just, it is one of those things that, as we said, you have to research and, more importantly, work with somebody who knows what they're doing, because it is complicated. The tax and economic systems are very complicated, and I think they do that on purpose to confuse you. But it is something to really be thinking about, though, because, as you said, there's some huge benefits as long as you're doing it the right way.
100%. Yeah. And it's so there's income tax, there's property taxes, there's capital gain tax, there's dividends tax, there's withholding tax, there's corporate tax, there's import duties. I mean, there's a whole spectrum. There's municipal, there's VAT, like a value added tax or a consumption tax. So we need to weigh all of these types of things. And I specialize in low tax or tax-free countries. These are the types of places that I work with people on. So I'm not the one to move you to Sweden or Norway and have you spend 60 or 70% of your income on taxes. I focus more on, tax haven, low tax, offshore jurisdiction, territorial tax types of places. Right. And then we balance this based on it. But it can be huge savings for you. Another important one on the financial side of things is your insurance. So in the United States, from my understanding, insurance can be very expensive.
It can be rather costly.
Yeah. So, we can often save you, tens of thousands of dollars in insurance when you move.
Right. Because the healthcare systems are different.
Correct. Yeah. And we can still do, full coverage, inpatient, outpatient, full drug plan, zero deductible, blah, blah, blah. And you can often pay considerably less than you would in the United States. Now, I'm Canadian citizen. Sometimes people say, oh, well, we have free healthcare in Canada.
No.
Okay. Not really. I mean, you're paying 50% tax, 60% tax. Just on the income side, income, federal and provincial. But I mean, then there's all the additional taxes. So, I mean, you're looking at a lot more than that. Right. But look at the wait times, what we're talking about in Canada now. 6 months to a year to 18 months to get an MRI. You could
literally die while you're waiting.
Legit, So, but down here in Latin America, I mean, we've got a Johns Hopkins hospital 5 minutes, 10 minutes from my house. And I mean, if I want to go and get an MRI there, or I want to go and see a dermatologist or a neurologist or something like that, I'll get an appointment tomorrow. I mean, I don't have to wait a year.
And here, for some of those in the States, we're into months of waiting.
Yeah. And in the States, it can be really costly. Here, even if you have to pay out of pocket, it's very affordable. So a lot of people self-insure. They put away a little bit of money every single month. And,
and keep their fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the other thing is that often, Debbie, you'll find that people are healthier down in these places if you're smart about it. Because, okay, it's very warm weather here. So we've got 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness.
You're outside.
You're outside. Natural vitamin D from the sun. You're getting exercise. The food is naturally organic because they don't have
the kids are not attached to their cell phones.
Exactly. And Monsanto's not spraying everything in chemicals, It's very family orientated. So there's lots of communal events and, people having birthday parties at the park, and you just walk up and say hello. Like my daughter will go and like ask for a piece of cake or a slice of pizza or something from some random person's birthday party. And they're always so accommodating, and they smile, and they
they'd call the police.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so there's just, it's so different, and then we're swimming in the ocean and, here in Panama, we've got the Caribbean Sea and we've got the Pacific Ocean, and you can go out in the water and, be on the beach, and it's just so stunning, so you just naturally have a healthier lifestyle. And the values are more geared towards family and community and the neighborhood, opposed to keeping up with the Joneses. Like, we just don't have that here in Latin America, in a lot of places in the world. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think we see that especially in the big cities here, and a big part of it is we don't get out and about, and for a variety of reasons. But it's, and we eat. I tell people I'm going to live to be 150 because of all of the preservatives I've eaten. But, and there are so many things here that keep us inside. I laughingly said, kids attached to their cell phones. We don't see kids now. I'm a lot older than you, and I grew up in a very small mountain town in Colorado. We were outside as much as possible, even when it was way cold. You just bundled up, and if you fell over, you couldn't get 100%. Back up. You were like a turtle. But it was. It obviously was very different. But yeah, it's. And so I can see why, especially for people who have kids, why this is something where they're thinking, I want to do this, but keeping their options open by having the dual citizenship to be able to go back if they want to, and things like that.
Well, that's another interesting point. Let's say you have someone who listens to this episode and they go, that sounds like a really interesting idea. I want to try it. And they move overseas and they don't like it.
Right.
Oh, well, just move back. I mean, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
You didn't, nothing is irreversible in this. You don't, if you're an American or an Australian or a Canadian or whatever, and you move to a different country and you don't like it, you just turn around and go home. It doesn't prevent you from going back to your home country. You'll always be welcome in that country. So like you always have, I work a lot of, asset protection, wealth protection. What's the worst that can happen? How does this happen? It's like, I don't think that there's any downside to any of this. Often even, someone say, well, maybe it's not safe there. Actually, statistically, if you look at the places that I'm moving people to, it's considerably safer than any
than say Atlanta.
Than Atlanta or Chicago or, a lot of the US major tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. It's considerably safer here in Latin America. Okay, there's unsafe areas as well. But that's not where I'm moving people, and that's not where I'm telling you to move to. I'm not telling you to move to a cartel-ridden, area and do dumb things. Be out all night and flex a Rolex watch and drink too much. No, I'm telling you, take your family and take your kids to the park and be in a nice area and make friends.
Right.
It's often a lot safer down here.
Oh, yeah. Actually. And it's funny. I wrote down safety as one of my things to ask you, because that is, clearly a concern that people have. And, and again, when you're being a tourist, you're not in those areas, or you shouldn't be, because you're where your hotel is, where your resort is, where the touristy things are, all of those things. And, and of course, what we hear are things on the media.
Sure.
And so we hear, oh, don't go there, don't. And the key is, again, to do your research. Don't think, I think the Ukraine looks like a nice place to move to.
Sure.
Maybe not now. Now, obviously sometimes people have family issues and reasons and things like that. But it's, you're, like you said, this is, you said, you stay friends with these people. So you want them to be safe. You want them to be secure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, I've traveled to many countries in the world that are safe and many countries in the world that are not safe.
Right.
In 23 years in 110 countries, the only thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life of traveling was I got my wallet stolen. But where was it? In Ontario, where I was born.
Yep.
I went to the pool and I put my stuff in a locker, and I'm a national lifeguard and I'm basically a fish. I like to swim, and I put my stuff in the locker and someone broke in and took my wallet. That was in the city I was born in. I was back visiting my family.
Right.
But I've never really had any other problems. And I've been to North Korea. I've been to Iran. I drove across Africa. I was in El Salvador in 2003. I was in Colombia in 2003 for 2 months. I never had any problems in any of those countries. I mean, Southwestern Ontario.
You know, when we were in Northern Ireland, I mean, you always hear about unrest in Northern Ireland, right? We were probably far safer there than we were in Atlanta.
Sure.
You know, but yeah, and of course the media likes to hype things up, and so we hear about the bombings and the killings, and but yeah, I mean, it's just that's going to happen everywhere. So you just need to say, okay, that's not where I'm going to go. I'm going to go here instead.
Yeah. Well, I was just in Azerbaijan with my family, and if anybody's been following the news, they might see that conflict has just broken out between Azerbaijan and Armenia for, multiple times. So I had people like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Okay, well, that is a very small region of Azerbaijan. It was actually Azerbaijan who invaded Armenia. It wasn't the other way around. And I was in Baku in the capital, which is like a super modern, very, very safe capital, very, very wealthy. And so there was literally zero danger. We didn't even see one military personnel in the entire time we were, 5 weeks between these countries. And the whole thing was over in a day. And, so it's like you read the headlines and you see war broke out between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And it's like, no, I mean, that's
it's not the whole country. It's kind of like, when it would snow in Colorado. Yep. And, and usually it was when Monday Night Football, right? So the whole world was watching and it would snow and people were like, oh my God, the whole state. I'm like, no, this little part of, of the state got snow. The rest of us are okay. And of course, my favorite now is living in Atlanta when there's a hurricane, whether it's in the Gulf or in the Atlantic. And now we've been here, almost 12 years. I still have people saying, are you okay? We saw that there was a hurricane. And I tell them, you understand how far inland we are. We get rain. I mean, there are definitely times where we get rain because of hurricanes, but no more so than, any other time when we get rain. And so that again, that's where doing your research helps.
Yep. So, when you're doing your research, mainstream media, CNN or Fox News is not doing your research. I mean, that's misinformation. I mean, that is not where people should be looking at these types of things, because what they're trying to do is get eyeballs. I mean, it's all about these sensational type of headlines, and they mislead people. And whether it's true or not true, they don't really care. I swear. I'm really,
they just want that click.
Exactly. So you have to go, either look at independent media or people with real life experience going to these places. And, I'm not saying go move to Azerbaijan. I'm not saying that at all. That's not a place that I work in. It was just a place that I happened to be, traveling because I like to go exploring. But, I'm putting myself out there. I'm constantly pushing things and trying it and learning it and experiencing. And then I can give, more custom made and, advice and help people with it based on real life experiences, not just because I read the headlines.
Right. So I would imagine when somebody is researching, if they're going to move somewhere, culture is also a big thing that they need to research. I have a friend who is a high school teacher, and she has become kind of an expat type of teacher. And she spent several years in Saudi and then several years in mainland China. Amazing. And, the big thing, obviously, in Saudi as a woman it's very different than, being here in the United States. And, and she learned very, very quickly, and of course, the school she was at, she was actually there as part of a State Department type of thing. And so it was a different level, but, she knew you did not go out without your head covered. You had to have sleeves, your shoulders were not, and she knew if she was going to be successful, she needed to follow those rules. And I shouldn't say rules. I guess some of them really are kind of rules. But she also knew that it was very important to do what the culture says you do. And, and so this was not the place to be going around in shorts. And, now there were places that you could, but, and then, in China, that was a big learning experience for her. And she was actually there during the main parts of COVID. And she, it was very interesting getting communications from her, just saying what was going on. And, I mean, it was very different, but yeah, it's, you need to know what is that culture. Is it, especially with, say, very religious types of countries, and other countries. I mean, obviously the Middle East, if you are a woman, it's very different to be there. And you can't say, well, I'm an American. No, even if you were just a tourist, there are things that you need to be doing.
Absolutely. I think it's important to understand the cultures. Now, when I went over to the Middle East, like I said, I was over there for 8 years. I wasn't in Saudi. Saudi was next door. I was in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. So most people have probably heard of Dubai. I was actually in Abu Dhabi, which is the next city over, which is actually the capital. But when I got there, I mean, the company that I was working with, they had, a half a day about the culture. Okay, this is a Muslim country, and this is how we act, and this is what's acceptable, and this is what's not acceptable. So the rules going in, like it's not a surprise, and it's not for you to go in and say these rules are bad or these rules are wrong. Actually, that might be someone's first knee-jerk reaction, but do you understand the culture and the history and where this comes from and why? And,
right. That's a great thing to be learning about.
Exactly. This is an opportunity for you to learn. This is not a place where people should judge. And I think that happens a lot of times with North Americans, where they go overseas and they think that it should be a certain way.
Right.
Well, if you want everything to be the same as it is at home,
then stay
at home. 193 countries in the world. They have 193 countries in the world, 193 different perspectives. Well, I mean, once you start looking inside the culture, millions. But my perspective is that we should be using this as an opportunity to learn, to try to see things from someone else's point of view, to, walk in their shoes. That's what I am trying to do.
Right.
I don't presume that my way of life or what I was brought up with is the correct way and everybody else is wrong. I think that this is a very narrow and a very immature way of looking at the world.
Right.
And I say immature, and I don't mean, if you're 10 years old or all the way up to 90 years old, 100 years old, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, you need to understand that the world's a very big place.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and there's also business cultures. And, I mean, there are countries that take an entire month off from doing business in the summer, or an hour every afternoon, but they work later. I mean, all of these various things. So you just need to kind of know. Now, if your business is still in your home country, then clearly you're going to follow what's going on there. But yeah, it's very interesting. We when we were in Italy, it was like, what time do we eat dinner? 8? We have to eat dinner at 8. I was like, but but yeah, I mean, it was very different just to know some of those things. But it's, as you've been saying, so much fun to be exploring them and finding out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always find it quite funny because we can always get a table here in Panama because our set dinner time when I take clients out is 7 p.m. If we eat at the house, it's probably like 5:30, 6 o'clock or something with the kids. But if I take clients out, it's 7 p.m. And by the time we're finishing dinner, we've had dessert, we've had, a bottle of wine and everything like that. That's when
the crowd
starts coming. And
right.
so like, we're usually like the first ones in the restaurant, but then by the time we leave, it's and
right.
so
yeah, we found that in Italy. We would go
Yeah.
early and be done, and and then go back to our little place. We actually rented a home there. It was very cool, in a very small town, and so we spent 2 days in Rome. Other than that, we were out and about and had so much fun. Well, Mikkel, oh my gosh, we only have about 5 minutes left. This has been so much fun. And I think we've just scratched the surface on this. So we'd love to have you on again if you would like to be able to talk more about this. Because, yeah, I mean, to the details of asset protection and all of those various things, I think are so very interesting. But, tell us more about how people find you and what are the services that you provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a very large summit coming up. It's an online event, October 2nd to the 6th. It's 5 days. And this has been a ton of work to put together. This is my third time doing a summit, second time with my company, with Expat Money. And you guys can get a ticket for free at expatmoneysummit.com. We're expecting about 10,000 attendees this year, so it's going to be huge.
Wow.
We have my friend.
Obviously, it's online.
100% online, 100% online. 8 hours a day, 5 days straight. We're going into depth about all of the things that you and I have just touched on today. There's going to be a ton of information, a lot of the lawyers, accountants, property developers, etc., who are going to be speakers. My very good friend and mentor, Doug Casey, is a speaker. Jim Rogers is a speaker. Mark Faber, Peter Schiff, Congressman Dr. Ron Paul, John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Well, and you mentioned really it's annually. Speakers. So if people are listening to this after, get on the website, find out when the next one is.
Yep, absolutely. So even if you're listening to this down the road, still go to expatmoneysummit.com. You'll be able to put your name on the waiting list for next year. If you're listening to this live this week, then that's great. Then you're going to be able to join us. And I hope that you do. I'll take very good care of your people, Deb. And if not, then make sure that you check out expatmoney.com. We have weekly podcast, 3 times a week blog articles. We have a daily email newsletter. Quarterly trips and webinars and presentations. There's a ton going on in our community, and very happy to welcome your people and take good care of them.
I love it. Deb? You know, and you mentioned all these resources, and I want to encourage people. And I was on the website, and there are so many great resources. So if this is a little tickle in your brain, and you're thinking, now is a good time to start, if you really are interested in it, go slow, so get the emails, get the, read the blog posts, listen to the podcast, all of those various things, because that really will help you determine if this is something feasible or not.
Exactly. That's why we put
because it sounds fun. Resources. Oh my God, I would love to do this, but
yeah, that's the thing. We put out tons of free resources. You need to get educated about these types of things. Right. You need to start learning about it and kind of let things settle a little bit, and but that osmosis, what we were talking about before. So get on there, start learning about it. If it makes sense, you can reach out to me at expatmoney.com, where we'll be able to take things to the next level and give you a little bit more help.
Right. I love it. I love it. Well, Mikkel, as I said, this has been so much fun and so interesting. If we go according to our plan, my husband may retire next year. And clearly we're youngsters, right? So we got a lot of life left in us. And, and so this fascinates me. Would I consider moving? I don't know. But it like I said, it's a little tickle, that little tickle in your brain where you're thinking, could I do this? And what I love is that you have shown that it is definitely possible. I think so many people would go, oh, I'm going to do that. Yeah, that's not going to work. And so really, if you're thinking about it, really investigate it. See if this is something that could work for you.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's important. If the things that we've been talking about today interest you, then get educated about it. And we put out a ton of resources to help people.
I love it. Well, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Well, Deb, I want people to understand that the world is a very big place. As we said before, 193 countries. I imagine that most people who are listening or, listening to this point in the conversation, they probably have somewhere in their head that they think, wouldn't it be amazing to live there or spend an extended amount of time in that place? Now, I don't know what that is, that place for you. And I don't know if you ever told your spouse or your siblings or your friends or anything about it. Maybe you kept it all inside. But my suggestion for you is, or my invitation for you is to try it, to go out, get that Airbnb for a month or 2 months and just give it a go and see if you like it. And if you do, then amazing. You can always build on that. And if you don't, you just go home. It's all right. So that would be my last piece of advice for anybody who's listening to today's conversation.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So much fun. Well, as I said, this has been such a fabulous conversation. I can't wait to do it again. But I've been having a great time talking with Mikkel Thorup and Deb Creer. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.